Good evening. My name is Sean Kielty, and today I'll be briefing you on the medium is the message, Marshall McLuhan and the Tetrad of media effects. Marshall McLuhan was a media theorist, making him also a communications theorist, who was born on July 21st, 1911 in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Did his undergraduate work at the University of Manitoba and his graduate work at the University of Cambridge. He taught at the University of Toronto from 1946 at the age of 35 until his death in 1980 at the age of 69. Marshall McLuhan was famous for making many prophetic predictions, including the global village, the World Wide Web, both of which terms he coined, or phrases he coined, 30 years before their arrival. While he was a mainstay in the discussion of media communications throughout the 60s, his import and his stock, so to speak, faded in the 1970s. However, with the advent of the internet, a new posthumous interest was spurred in his work, and he's been studied fairly closely ever since. As stated before, he's a pioneer in communications theory as it applies to mass media. He coins the expressions, the media is the message, the media is an extension of ourselves, and that the advancement of technology contains the actual meaning of the medium, rendering content itself irrelevant. His major works, as they apply to the Tetrad we're going to talk about in a moment, were The Mechanical Bride, which is among the first scholarly analyses of modern technological culture. It was written in 1951. The Gutenberg Galaxy, introducing the idea that communications technology, in this case Gutenberg's movable type, can influence meaning. And then lastly, Understanding Meaning. He discusses the actual meaning delivered by the media itself, and that was written in 1964. McLuhan's Tetrad of media effects divides the societal impacts of advances in media technology into four categories. Each category of the Tetrad is formed into a question. What does the media enhance, or what does the medium enhance? What does the medium make obsolete, and what does the medium retrieve that has been obsolesced earlier? Lastly, what does the medium flip into when pushed into extremes? The categories exist concurrently, not sequentially. It's not going from something that's enhanced to something that's reversed, or something that's retrieved to something that's obsolete. They exist simultaneously, and we'll give you an example shortly of how that actually operates. The center of the Tetrad is the media itself, so then we just have used the placeholder medium, in this case just because it was convenient, but the medium we'll be discussing specifically is the smartphone. Now again, this can be anything. It could be the internet itself that McLuhan predicted 30 years ahead of its advent in our daily lives. Or it could be something as seemingly innocuous as the technological advancement that seems as kind of innocuous as the Kindle, right? But that essentially revolutionizes the way we read books, making books themselves obsolete, enhancing our ability to read multiple books or have access to books in a more quick, speedier fashion, while also retrieving other experiences that have been lost previously, and when pushed to the extremes, result in only snippets of certain print media being consumed. The quadrangles at the left are the enhancement and the retrieval. They're also called figure concepts, right? They're the enhancement and the retrieval of the figure concepts. The quadrangles on the right are the obsolescence and reversal. Those are the ground concepts, which returning to ground, so to speak, based on their involvement in this tetrad. So as this tetrad is applied to the smartphone enhances the instantaneous accessibility of the World Wide Web, and therefore all the information at the disposal of the World Wide Web, and it also enhances the velocity of interpersonal communications to almost face-to-face live interaction. However, what is lost as a result of that interaction, as we'll discuss later, is the actual nonverbals involved. So while you may be able to get a message to someone that said, "Hey, we'll meet at 6," one can't really get all the nonverbals associated with whether they're actually interested in meeting at 6, whether they have other things going on, whether they're preoccupied, whether they're very interested in meeting at 6, etc., etc. All that nonverbal communication is lost, and all that meaning as well is lost as a result of this kind of abbreviated media experience itself becoming the meaning, the velocity becomes the meaning, the instantaneous accessibility becomes the meaning, the omnipresence of the smartphone becomes the meaning. So the smartphone also obsolesces prior iterations of cell phones, as well as the need for a traditional PC or documentary printing capabilities at home. Why would I need to print out this document? I can easily refer to the smartphone. This applies to everything from insurance documentation to in some cases ID, to in some cases credit card information. I've seen people walk up to Starbucks, instead of whip out their Starbucks card, they just show a barcode that mirrors that Starbucks card on their smartphone. It's easier than trying to retrieve and continue to track an actual physical credit card or ID or insurance card, and makes it a universally accessible tool, which is very convenient. Of course, it's very convenient, but at the same time, it's also it's the one-point failure for your entire life, right? If someone loses their smartphone, it's more devastating now than losing one's wallet. So the smartphones retrieve the convenient use of high-quality cameras and video recording devices, as well as the enjoyment of books. When I spoke before about the Kindle, the electronic book format, it's instantly accessible as far as new books are concerned. However, there may be a delay as a result of the actual downloading of the experience, or a loss of power. The actual device needs to operate on electrical power, and if there's no source of electrical power, that device may not function the way it's supposed to, whereas a book is a book is a book, right? You can pick up a book at any time, and in that regard, it's more convenient, much more permanent, and much more accessible. But as far as getting multiple books, as far as accessing all of this information, libraries worth of information, which used to be a destination and sort of a cathedral of knowledge, now it's all reduced to kind of an electronic brain database that can retrieve the relevant information you need, and you can abandon the remaining information and the overall experience of actually going to this cathedral of knowledge and really embracing the full experience of sitting down to read a book, or retrieving that book and reading it in a more comfortable location of your choice, even though the books are all accessible by the smartphone. Smartphone also restricts face-to-face communications or interactions, and thereby inhibits interpersonal communications other than text, auditory, or meme. As my brother, a filmmaker named John Caney, likes to say, that memes represent both the highest and lowest form of art. Because while they can get this, and in a meme in itself would be the medium becomes the message, because of course it is the medium that is making this message impactful, whether it's Robert Downey Jr. looking profoundly relieved at something in a message scrolling above and beyond or below, kind of like making a smart quip, or it's the two antithetical pictures next to each other having an argument about another kind of like bon mot of verbal exchange. The message is still in that media, that meme, right? Or the messages in the text or the auditory conversation. As a result, the nonverbals are lost, all of the body language is lost, all of the meaning in the other non-medial forms, that other actual in-person interaction, is lost as a result. These restrictions are when they're taken to extremes. In cases of smartphone addiction, they restrict human contact even further. I've actually encountered people in my life, family members, who prefer to be sitting right next to each other, texting each other information rather than interacting, when of course the interaction face-to-face is much more convenient and more profound and more interesting, really, because they have the ability to move from topic to topic or medium to medium on their smartphone instantly. They choose to do that instead, so they can not just effectively multitask, but don't have to avoid multitasking, don't have to engage in that the eye contact or the body language that is required for interpersonal communication, and just continue to live kind of a virtual media filtered life. In this case, the smartphone, which is more than the sum of its parts, supplants the meaning of messages captured and exchanged by each of its capabilities in its use, and thereby the smartphone media itself becomes the message. Thank you very much for the time it took for you to sit for this briefing on Marshall McLuhan's Tetrad, and I hope you found it interesting and read more on it, preferably in a library rather than on your smartphone. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful evening.